Hey, this is Jeep's Rock. We're going to show you how to install the handle matters. What we're doing is we're replacing the old plastic handles that were on Jeeps. Since 2007, Jeep went ahead and went back to the plastic. It used to be, way back in the day, it used to be all steel. So what we're going to do is we're going to ditch the plastic, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you what is in this box, which is going to be the handles matter. Go ahead and open it up here. And this is going to be replacement, completely different than what you see here. It's the plastic. We're going to ditch the plastic and we're going to go to a metal. So how it works is this was the push button. This one is actually a paddle. So I'll go ahead and put it to this side so you can kind of see a little bit better, but you can see how it does this. It's a paddle. And this is, once you have this, you'll understand that when you do the installation. But this is what it looks like. This is just an example. This is one we had custom made from Handle Matters. And on the back, you have your mechanism here, but then you also have this rubber gasket that you'll make sure that's on there. But we're going to show you step by step through the process. We'll show you what tools we used, a couple of hints that we have come up with while we were doing their install. But it gives you a whole different look once you're done with that. So again, these are going to be on the side of the Jeep. And then if you want to, you can also get one for the rear hatch. And because it's going down vertical, you can see here that we went down with a full word of the name of our Jeep, which is dark side. And so you can see how that works. And again, it's the same way it does the paddle. And then without the gasket on here, the rubber gasket, you can see what it looks like. So we're going to go ahead, just to let you know, we've went ahead and disconnected both of the doors for the straps on either side, so that it makes it a little easier. And what we'll do, you can fold it all the way out. And that way we can work on it a little bit easier. But that's just an example of some tips that we have. You may not want to do that, but it's up to you. We just did that especially for as much room as we have in our garage. We went ahead and went with that. Now that we're ready to do the install, we're going to show you real quickly on what tools you'll need to do this job. First of all, you're going to need a variety of removal tools for your panel. I'll have a link in the description down below. I have a lot of different ones. You can see I've used these a lot. But these are plastic, that way they don't mar up the plastic as much when you're placing the door, taking the doors off. Next thing you need is a Torque T25 bit, which is right here. It's just a removable bit. I'm sure you have one of those, but it's a T25. Then you're going to need just a Phillips screwdriver. You'll also need just a socket wrench, and make sure you'll have to have one. You'll have to at least have an extension at least this long. And then you're going to need two different sockets. You're going to need a 3/8, and you're also going to need a 5/16. You'll also need just a very simple drill, a very small starter bit, and I would recommend using a step bit. Made it a lot easier, that way you can spin it just a little bit longer. This is the only thing you're going to be doing is drilling one hole in the back of the inside of the door. And you'll never see it once we're done, so don't be too scared, and it's okay. You can be kind of cautious, but it's not too bad for the hole that you're going to make. The last thing is, and I highly recommend, it's not required, but I recommend using this permanent double-sided Scotch tape. And if you see here, we've already done a couple installs with this already. If you can see on my bit, I have a lot of permanent tape still on these. I just left them on because I'm doing more installs with these handles, but this is what's going to keep you from losing that nut when you take them on and off for the first time. You want to make sure, because you're going to be pulling it almost the total distance of this socket right here. So when you pull it out, you want to make sure that you don't lose that nut. And with this permanent tape stuck on here, and all you're going to do is, I'll show you now, is you're just going to take a little piece of this tape. Again, this is double-sided, so it's sticky on both sides. You just take your socket, you put it over on both sides, you put your nut on here, and then that's when you're going to insert it. When you take it off the same way, you just put it in there, and then it'll take a little bit of time to get used to it, because it's just a different kind of process, because you're thinking, well, now I don't have any way to grab onto that with a socket, but it does work, and it saved me a couple times already. So make sure you get some of that double-sided tape. That's all you're really going to need, and we're going to go ahead, and I will say we have a 4-door. And when I first did the install, I did the front door because I thought it would be easier. Unfortunately, it was not. So I recommend to do the rear side doors first, because that way you'll get used to the process. The reason that the front door is a little bit more difficult, and I will make sure to show you, there's a little white, almost like a shim that they have in the Jeep for how the door handle works, and you have to get so close to that, so you have to really tighten down the nuts when you're on there, and I'll show you how I did that and how we accomplished that. What we're going to do right now, we'll go ahead and we're going to open up this door and take off the panel, and we'll show you step by step on how to do that. When removing the back panel on the rear doors, you're going to have a torque T25 right here. You're also going to use your panel removal tool, and you're just going to pry this off. These are non-functional, so you're going to pry this off. And then you're also, as a tip, you're also going to be taking this back piece off here to access another one of the T25 back here. To do that, I'm going to do it right now. You just pull this back a little bit behind the handle, so it's already off, and then just work your way up, and it should just pop right off. So that's just a little tip of using it at the bottom, and that comes off, and you can see right here is your T25 right here. And if you come down here below, there's one more torque right down here below on the T25. So we're going to go ahead, and the next thing we'll do, we'll see if we can get this off here while we're talking about it. Again, I've used different tool removals for this, so I might get a different one real quick. But again, this is non-functional. And this might just be a little too thick. So I'll just grab a different one. You can see that's why I have different tools for the job. Just slowly work your way. It comes right off, and now you can see, now when we use our Phillips screwdriver, we have one here and one here. Now that we have all the connections loose, you're going to make sure you're going to pull this back a little bit so you can get this out. But what we're focusing on now is the seal that's up here on top. So now that we have it loose, there's nothing here holding it on, but it does pull down and it gets into this channel. So what you're going to do is you're going to come from the bottom and just push up, and when you're pushing up, make sure to also help that out by moving that handle out of the way. So let's go ahead and we'll get that. So I'm going to just push up to get this to get loose. You can see how what I'm trying to do is what I'm talking about is I'm trying to get this right here. And there's going to be one more right there in the center. You just heard it pop. So I've got one side. You can see now that channel I was talking about. And then just slide it off again. I'm just going to help it a little bit by moving that handle out of the way. So this is how this works. This is the channel that was right here. So when you go to put this back on, you're going to take this door and you're going to fit that into the channel right here. And that way it locks in place. So instead of, I had mentioned earlier I was going to put a picture. Now you can see real clearly where those Christmas trees go on each one of these pieces here. And I'll show you what they look like. They're right here as well. But another good tip for you is if you're like us where we've used this for a lot of years off-road, we get a lot of stuff in these channels with a lot of rocks. So you may notice as your Jeep starts to age or you start doing a little bit more off-roading, it starts to get that really almost feels like a chalkboard kind of field with all those rocks. That's because they're in this channel. So this is a good time to get something just to clean this out, make sure there aren't any more rocks or sand in here, and that way you'll be amazed when you go to roll up the window, it's nice and quiet again. So I've already done that with all mine, and I'm going to make sure I clean this one out too. And then the next thing we're going to do is, that's all we have to do on the rear, because on the front we had to disconnect a connector here, and then we also had this little piece here, and this is how you're going to access into the handle. So you want to make sure that you pull this out, and this is just a stopper here to keep dust and stuff from going in there. So it gives you access to one of the nuts of the factory door handle, and I'll show you how to get access to the other one, which is going to be right here. I'll show you how to do that next. As an optional step, you can go ahead and remove this particular one for reinstallation if you would like. This is again optional. The reason I do that is because everything else can line up pretty easy when you're putting this back on, but that particular connector is always in the way. And so once this is on and it's back up about this angle, you can get your hand in there and put that last one in. Again, that's an optional one, or you can try to fight it and try to get it on there, but this is the one that's going to be really hard to get connected back in. Now we're ready to do the installation portion of the handle. Now that we have the door off, we need to do one more thing, is to drill a hole right here. These are drill hole guides, and if you see here that it has rear driver, rear passenger, so just make sure you have the right one. It's all marked for you. What you're going to do on this particular one is this cutout here is for these two cables, so you're going to slide that underneath it. You're going to take your starter bit and you're just going to make a slight indicator right here. Again, you'll never see this once the door panel is back on. I would like to also give you another tip here in just a second once I get that done. It's real small, but I can see right here, here's my indicator where I'm going to drill. If you see next to here, we have two cables. When you're drilling through that, you don't have to worry about it at first because it's down below, but as the hole gets a little bit larger, it's going to get close to those. So when I'm doing my step bit, with this right here, you can see as I get closer, I'm going to be getting closer and closer to that cable. So what I'm going to do is when I start drilling, I'm going to be very careful. I'll have my gloves on, but I'm going to make sure I'm going to pull this down a little bit. You can see right here there's a little bit of give. I can pull that down, that way I'm not too close to those cables. But you're right here, and if you can, try to leave a little bit of plastic left here so it's just not one big hole, but it's up to you if you want to. Again, you'll never see this again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep this over a little bit closer and right here, and this is how we're going to get to that hole that's going to give us access to that last nut. And that's what you're doing here, is the size is going to indicate by making sure that that larger socket, which is going to be our 3/8 socket, can fit through here. That's what our objective is. So you can see how close we are going to be right to here. But that little drill plate right here that says rear driver, what that's doing is it's saving us time from having to take off every one of these bolts, take off the actuator. Everything would have to come off to get to that if you didn't use those plates. What I'm going to use, I use a Sharvol light so I can see in here a little bit better, but it gives me an indicator of exactly where it's at, and I've already tested and made sure that my socket, both sides sizes can fit through this hole. So I'm just going to take it in here. I'm going to use my light. And then once you've got it loosened up a little bit, I just take that off. I know it's on there, and I can also put my hand behind the door as well and hold on to the handle to help out a little bit. And I'm just going to slowly bring this out. If you have a little bit longer extension, probably a little bit easier because it can be possible I might drop that all the way through the door. So I just want to be careful with that. I'm going to slowly bring it out. And this is why you want to do the old stick tape here. You can see right here that it's stuck on there, and I can't even take it off, so it did really well for exactly what we want it to do. And it's really on there. But there's the factory nut right there. So it stayed in there without falling through the door. So we'll just repeat that and get this other one out. So now, once this busts loose, the whole door handle is going to come off, so just hold the door handle. Again, bring it in loose. Take off that socket. Just use your extension. Feel the handle coming off already. Just be careful when you bring this back through that you're going through these two wires here. And these wires are only going to be in the way on the rear. The front won't have to deal with this at all. So I can feel that the handle is now loose. I just have to get this through without that dropping. So here's the handle, and we'll go ahead and get that last nut out of there by pushing these two down a little bit. And there you go, successful removal of the factory door handle. Another tip for you, what you want to do, especially in the front door, but in the rear door doesn't really matter too much, but I would start on the front hole instead of the rear hole on both, because you're going to make this nice and tight. That way it kind of makes it a little bit more flush from here, because the stud here on the front is actually fairly short. So you want to make sure you get this nice and tight on the front, and then that way you can kind of bring your handle like this. And then once it's put on, this is going to get a little bit tighter, as you can see, and then you're going to push this on. That way you can get to the back, and you're going to be using the supplied nut that's come from Handles Matter, and that's what it's going to look like when it's done, so you can kind of see the difference between the old and the new. Alright, as we roll in here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the front door here. And we've already taken off the covers to make it a little bit faster. Again, you have 2 screws, and you're also going to have your torque T25 right here, and then 2 down below. You can see we have our JK pockets here. Again, this is where we've got our connector because our door's been pushed back. Again, you don't have to do that if you want, but it just makes it a little bit easier, I think, for me to get this off. And we've also protected the back side because if you are not familiar with it, when you do extend this out, it is pushing on the cowl on the front here, so you want to make sure you have something protective behind it so you're not pushing into your Jeep at all for that. So it's an option if you want. Again, it seems to be a little bit easier for us when we flipped it onto the side to make it work, but when you do, again, pull this off, make sure, again, this has power windows and locks. There will be a connector right here, so don't just pull this straight off because this is connected to the door. You'll have to disconnect that, and then also take out the dust plug that's in here. So those are the only 2 things you'll have to do, and then make sure you grab the right drill hole plate, and this one's going to say front driver on it, and you just line that up, drill it, and then put it on as you did before. So we hope this has helped you. Again, this is the install for the rear and the front. Again, we mentioned that we did the rear first because it's just a little bit easier to get used to, and I will make sure, as I mentioned before, there is a little white connector. If I can capture that, I'll make sure to show that as well to be careful on, because you need to make sure you push that first one in first on the nut to make it nice and tight to where you can get enough for it to bite on the last one. You'll see what I mean once you go through installation as well. But if you do like that, please make sure you do subscribe, because we will be making another video for the rear tailgate handle that we had mentioned before, and that way you'll know how to install that as well. So thanks again for watching Jeeps Rock. We hope you have enjoyed this video and has been very helpful, and hopefully those little tips will help make your installation a little bit easier.